Welcome to the Home Education with Ease podcast. I'm your host, Christine Furman, a homeschool mom, entrepreneur, and educator with over 20 years of experience in the areas of elementary and special education. It's my mission to help you create lifelong learners and embrace a holistic approach to education at home. I'll be sharing practical strategies, inspiration, and resources to support your family. Whether you're a stay-at-home mom, a business owner, or balancing work and homeschool, you're in the right place to connect with a community that values education just as much as you do. Join us each week as we ditch the stress, embrace the joy of learning, and set your family up for a lifetime of success. Hey there, friend. Welcome back to another episode of the Home Education with Ease podcast. I'm your host, Christine Furman, your home education expert. Well, first, before we dive in, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. I see you all tuning in from all over the world, and I am just so appreciative of that. I would love to invite you to go one step further and join us in the Home Education with Ease Facebook group and just share your biggest takeaway from each episode. Was there something that you learned? Was there something that you are doing differently that works best for your family? I want to know about it, and I would love to share that with our community so then that way they can learn and grow as well. So don't forget to join the Home Education with Ease Facebook group. That link is in the show notes below, and I am looking forward to connecting with you further there. Well, let's dive into today's episode. Over the past few weeks, we've talked about raising confident readers. And what does that look like? We're reading aloud to them and how important that is. Different ways that we can incorporate reading into our everyday life. And last week, we talked about what happens when your children are struggling. Why are there so many struggling readers right now? And we talked about some of the gaps that we're seeing. And today we're going to talk about what if there are stressful situations and how does that cause our children to have a dysregulated nervous system, and how does it affect their reading development and all learning, to be honest, right? And we're also going to talk about screens and how that could also dysregulate nervous system regulation for our children, and then that also affects their learning abilities. So I just have been loving talking to you about reading because it really is so important. It's a fundamental skill for life, and it is so important. And here is the cool thing. If your child is struggling, when we talked about some of the reasons they could be struggling, today we're going to talk about, well, why is stress causing them to struggle? But there's no behind. You can catch your kids up and you can focus on the reading skills that they need and any of the skills that they need and get them to a place where they're not struggling anymore. So we're going to talk about that today. How do we go from a stressful environment or situation and get them back to regulated and learning with ease? So we're going to talk all about that today. So I just want to share with you a couple situations that have happened in my world, and maybe you can relate to some of these, but I have two families that have had very stressful situations in their lives over the past few years. One was a parent that was sick and that threw off their entire schedule, right? The family shifted into survival mode, right? We have hospital visits that have to be made. Family is stepping in and watching the kids as needed. Life is different. There's no real routine. Everyone is just kind of scrambling to do what they can to survive. And how does a situation like that affect our children and their development? That's what we're going to talk about today. And I have another situation in a family that I work with that one of the children had an illness and they were had multiple surgeries. They had multiple hospital visits in different cities. So, maybe not even having the family there to help support them because they're in a totally different city, or the family would make different trips to support them. But again, how is that stressful situation where everyone is in survival mode affecting learning development? And moms, this goes for us too. If we are in survival mode, if we are stressed constantly, how is that affecting the environment around us? I know that has happened for me. When my nervous system has been dysregulated, everything feels so hard and it just feels off. And even my kids are like, something's just not running as smoothly as possible or as it typically is. And that does stress people out, right? So let's think about that. Think about a time maybe in your life that has been very stressful. Has it been a time where there has been illnesses like we were talking about? Or has there been a time where maybe your spouse has traveled and you now are a single parent in a sense where you are doing all the responsibilities and you are still making it work, right? You didn't expect that to happen. Or I know that for me is something that I went through a lot when my kids were younger. My husband would travel a lot for about 6 weeks, maybe sometimes longer for his job. And I would get very anxious right before he left, to the point of where I would even start fights because I was so like, I can't do this. I don't know how. I already feel stressed to the max. How am I going to add on something else? Now I have to just do it all without your help. And then after a few days, I was able to fall into a routine and we were able to easily get on track with a new routine, right? But there are so many situations like that. It can be a traumatic situation. It can be, just any kind of stressful situation that may be affecting your family and your children's development. So let's think about that and think about, why is this happening? And maybe you have none in your life, which is amazing. But maybe there's someone in your life, in your circle, that you can say, yes, I see that they're in survival mode and I see the struggles that they are facing. How can you help them? How can you support them? So I want you to be thinking about that as well. But why does this happen? Why, whenever we are in survival mode, does learning struggle, right? Or it's difficult to learn? Well, because when you are in that survival mode, your responses are fight, flight, or freeze. And you are in this emotional overload, which is reducing your focus to attend to specific tasks, right? So if you are, think about it. When you're running from a bear, hopefully you never have to run from a bear, right? But if you are in that survival mode of having to run from a bear, do you think your brain is available to be learning a new skill, or did it shift into survival mode? Totally shifted into survival mode, right? And I've been learning so much more about this. I'm definitely no expert in this area, but I am constantly learning more and more about it because the nervous system is just so fascinating to me. And with my children doing the MyoWave therapy, Dr. Leslie said that to me. She said, if you are in survival mode, so many other things are affected. Your sleep, right? And all of these different areas of your body, of your life and your body, right, are affected. And we were talking about that, and it just has clicked so much more for me of like, yes, this makes sense. When you're in that stressful situation, your body is prioritizing, or your brain is prioritizing safety over learning, over figuring out something new, right? So that attention and that working memory that you would need to be learning a new skill like reading is not going to be there if there are stressful situations. So in the two cases that I spoke about, one, grandparents were staying with the two young children, and sleep was different, right? I had heard this story where the children were used to sleeping with mom and dad. Well, now mom and dad aren't there. They're at the hospital. They're taking care of, trying to survive, trying to figure out what needs to happen next in terms of, recovery. And the kids, one, aren't sleeping in mom and dad's bed with mom and dad. And now their sleep is disrupted, right? So now they're not getting a good night's sleep, which then is affecting their routine because they're either sleeping in or they're waking up tired. And now they're either expected to learn, right? Expected to go to school and just go on as normal, right? Or they are not in school yet and they are just trying to figure it out. So those are some of the things that, kind of think about. Like when your nervous system is dysregulated, it definitely is so much harder for you or a child to access the parts of the brain that are needed for learning, reading, comprehending, right? Math, problem solving, skills, all of those things. Language, that could be another thing. So if you have been in a stressful situation or your family or your children, right? I would love to know what that looks like for your family. And you don't have to share details, or you can share details, because sometimes when we talk about these stressful situations and these emotions where we feel them, it will help our bodies to heal. I am full in that right now. I am doing homeopathy, and that has been a huge thing for me. Like, why is my body holding on to whatever, right? Well, have you processed these emotions? Have you worked through this stress in your life? So think about that. What are some of those moments that you could process and talk about, and then be able to help your children, to be able to catch up on some skills? So like I said, doesn't apply to everyone, but just some food for thought. And why is this happening? So how is a stressful situation showing up in reading skills for our kids? Well, it shows up by our kids reading slower, and they're processing it slower. They're forgetting lessons that they learned, especially phonics and letters and sounds, different things like that. That's something that maybe they learned, but they were in a stressful time in their life, or now the time is stressful and they just can't recall that information. So another thing that you might see is that resistance or that shutdown of like, nope, I don't want to do it. This is too hard. Well, why is it too hard? Were there skills that were missed that we need to go back? I mean, even think about the pandemic. I talked about this in the last episode, where the pandemic gap is a big reason for a lot of struggling readers right now, right? Can we say that that may have been a stressful time for a lot of people? I think so. I know for us personally, we were moving at that time as well. So we were moving and we didn't know what was happening with the world at the time. Things definitely looked different than they did a month ago, right? And the other thing is, so many families were trying to figure out how to work from home, how to teach their children from home. Kids were figuring out how to learn on the computer, which was not typical and really should not be the way that we are learning fully, right? We need that interaction. We need that hands-on learning. And learning on a computer screen is really not giving our children what they need. And we're going to talk about more about that here in just a little bit. But the reading skills could also show up as low confidence, right? So I've seen this many, many times where so many children that I work with are just like, I can't do this. I don't understand. It doesn't make sense to me. But once I work with them one-to-one, oh man, I love watching their confidence soar because they're like, I get it. I understand. I can read that book now. So when they are in that time of stress, they're like, I can't do anything. Again, it's just low confidence, low self-esteem, and just a change in routine, change in maybe environment, right? All of these things. So think about that. What are some of those situations, right? It doesn't mean that your child's not capable, because they definitely are, but it means that during those times, their brain is busy trying to manage these big emotions or the uncertainty. Think about the pandemic, total uncertainty, or managing a change in routine, right? So how can we help? How can we fix this? Well, we can start by slowly getting back to a normal routine. Whatever that normal looks like, it may look different than it did before the situation, but what is a simple, slow routine that you can do to get your kids back on track? And I just have to say, if you need help in this area, this is probably one of my favorite things to do, is working with families one-to-one to say, here's your schedule. Like, you share your schedule with me and I say, oh, okay, great. Here's a pocket of time. Here's a pocket of time. This is what this day can look like. This is what this day could look like. And you try it out. You give it about 20 days, see if that routine works. And then we come back and we say, nope, you know what? We need to change it up a little bit. What do we need to change? What worked and what didn't work? So if you need more support, there are so many ways for you to reach out to me. Facebook Messenger, Instagram Messenger, in the Facebook group, send me an email. All of those links are in the show notes, and you can reach out to me and say, I need help in this area. And I am right here to support you every step of the way. So let's talk about something that I learned about in college. And it took me a little bit of time to remember this and kind of reflect back on this. But as I was thinking about this episode, and I was thinking about how our kids need to feel safe before they can learn. And this is something that I learned about in one of my education and child development classes. And it's called Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs. And as I was thinking of this episode, that came to my mind so quickly. It's typically shown as a pyramid, and it's basically children must have their basic needs met before higher level learning can fully happen. And I remember learning that in school so clearly that I always wanted my classroom to feel safe. So any student now that I work with, now that I'm not in the typical public school setting, right? But I work with my children virtually. I work with them in one-to-one, in person, in a group setting. But anytime I work with a child, I want them to feel safe. I come down to their level. I talk directly to them. And I'm able then to create that safe net for them to say, I'm here. I'm here to support you. Just like I'm here to support the parents, I'm also here to support the kids. And when that support and safety and connection and calmness starts to happen, they start to open up. They start to shift out of that survival mode. And they say, okay, your body starts to say, okay, I'm safe. I can learn something new. I can take on this new task. Again, moms, there's so much of this that applies to our lives as well. If we are fighting every area of our life, it's going to be hard to take on these new tasks. So sometimes we just have to take some deep breaths, take some steps back. How can we get into a safe space? How can we feel calm? And the same thing, we need to do these things for our kids. And then what are some things that we can do to support them and now help them to learn these skills? Well, we can make sure that those routines are consistent. We can move our bodies. Moving our bodies and getting outside is so important for development. Our bodies were not made to sit still all the time. Yes, there has to be some focus time, but our brains were made to move. I know for me personally and our family, if we don't get a walk in the morning or do some kind of movement, it is harder for us to focus. And I know that is so true for myself as well. I know there are days when I'm like, I just have to sit down and do my work and just go, 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 go. Man, what a difference it does though for my body whenever I can get outside or I can get a workout in and move my body and then focus on the work. So again, those things are going to help support our children, help regulate their nervous system, and help them to feel safe, secure, and calm, and be able to focus on the next skills. Multisensory learning experiences also are helpful for our children. So that is what EduPlay learning is all about. I'm a huge advocate of multisensory learning, where we are doing school outside, we are jumping around, we are learning by throwing a ball back and forth, we are learning by writing on the chalkboard or painting or writing our letters with multiple different items, markers and bingo daubers and crayons and chalk, and right, allowing our children to experience learning is so good for their development. So let's now talk about the screens, and let's shift a little bit to that. We talked a little bit about how during the pandemic, it shifted learning drastically because so many schools realized, we could do so much more from the computer. And one, it's easy to grade and check work from the computer. It's easy for the kids just to get onto a screen and they're doing the work, right? I don't know what the philosophy is, but I am against it all, okay? I believe that screens are supplemental, and I believe they have to be intentional. Giving a child a screen all the time or just whenever it's convenient, and, it's like, oh yeah, sure, you can get on the screen. Oh yeah, sure, with no limitations, or having to do their schoolwork on a screen at all times, I just don't think it is good for them. It is not good for their brain. It overstimulates their nervous system. Think about for us. If you are on your phone and you're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and then you stop, how do you feel? I know sometimes that I feel like, whoa, I need a minute to just sit here and not do anything because I totally overstimulated my brain and my nervous system. Think about scrolling and how quickly we see things. And if we don't like it, we move on to the next thing and move on to the next thing. Same thing for video games or different things for our kids, right? It goes so fast and it's stressing out their nervous system. And then it's causing them to not have the attention for the things that they need, like reading or learning in an environment of like, okay, we need to sit down and we need to learn this lesson and show me what you know, right? That I'm a huge component of show me what you know. But it's also replacing that interactive learning. It's also replacing that face-to-face modeling that our kids need. They need to see someone say the question and make that connection of not only hearing it, but seeing the teacher say the question. When our kids are doing assessments on a computer, now listen, I'm not saying don't ever do it because we use computer programs within our homeschool program. And that is a tool, but it is not the only thing that we do. And there are limits on it. And there is just a small amount of time. And to be honest, my kids would rather learn one-to-one with me or, in a small setting than be on a computer. They want that interaction. So I do believe that it should be supplemental. It should not be replacing what we're doing because they need to see us model it. They need to be able to watch us. And the other thing is I'm thinking about these assessments and I'm thinking about our children that are sitting here for hours taking an assessment online and they're clicking a little button to hear the prompt or they have to read the prompt. One, it's all on a screen. So they're reading it, they may be straining their eyes and they're listening to it. So they've got headphones in or, right? I don't know. I just don't love it. I think it should not replace things, but it should be a supplement. And we don't want that to be replacing reading for our kids, right? Because if they're constantly listening to the prompts, they're not reading the question then. They're just waiting for someone to say it to them. So much that we can talk about this. And actually, in next week's episode, I interview Katie. She is an author that wrote a book all about this, how we are getting our kids off of the screens and more outdoors, learning the real life skills. So be sure to tune in to next week's episode because it is a good one for sure. And the book is amazing. So you're definitely going to want to check that out. We are going to be using the book this summer to read through it and really be practicing those life skills because they are so important. So that is kind of where this all ties in, where I just feel that screens are a great tool, but we don't want them stressing out our children. We know that there are stressful situations that come up all the time, right? But how can we help our children rebuild after those hard seasons, right? Those are unfortunate seasons. They're going to happen. This is life, right? So I'm not saying, well, we just have to avoid all hard seasons. That's not it. These situations come up, but what can we do to support our children when they do come up? And really, why, right? Why is learning impaired when the stressful situations come up? That was the biggest reason for this episode to say it makes sense, making those connections and those pieces and how we can support our children either during those hard seasons or after those hard seasons, when we start getting back to a normal routine, when we start getting back to, okay, we can breathe again. It may not look the same that it did before this hard season happened, but here's our new routine. Here is what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to rebuild skills that maybe were lost and missed because of that hard situation. So think about that. What skills may have been missed that you just need to go back and just practice a little bit more? How can we rebuild confidence with support, with a routine? Again, making them feel safe and calm and just giving them little pieces so then that way they can build their confidence. I'll give you a very quick example of building confidence. So I have many children that come see me for Reading Fundamentals, the Reading Fundamentals program that I've created. And a lot of times the moms say their confidence is just shot. Like they just don't feel like they can do it. They're struggling and they don't want to do it. So what do? I go back. And it may be something so simple. It may be a book that is like, oh my goodness, this is just an easy book. But guess what that does? It gives them the confidence that they can do it. So not by starting where they're at and saying, yeah, we're going to teach you right here. I'm going to go and teach you the skills, that you missed. Let's go back. What is something that they can do easily? Allow them to accomplish that task with ease and praise them so much because they did it. And then move on to the next task. that may be a little more challenging, but they still can accomplish it with ease. I think about this with my reading, right? The very first part of a book that I use is very easy because I've already given them the foundation before this, right? I've already prepped them. So when they get to this new book that looks, oh my goodness, so overwhelming and I don't know how we're going to get through this. They go through the first few lessons and they're like, oh, that was easy. I could do this. And then they just week by week, day by day, are able to easily accomplish the next task. And it's just such a blessing to watch their confidence grow and just regain their confidence. I love it so much. So celebrating, going back, shorter lessons, reading together daily. Don't underestimate reading out loud with your kids. It is so important. Take a book with you everywhere you go. When we're in the car, we read. The kids read. I don't read unless I'm not driving. But the kids read, and they read a chapter each, and then we just take a break. And then sometimes pay attention too. Maybe it was a lot. Maybe whatever event you just left, everyone just needs a minute to just de-escalate, right? And just kind of like regulate their nervous system. Allow space for that to happen. But if everyone's fresh and ready to go, like, yeah, here, read a book, read a chapter to me. Here, you read a chapter to me. Curl up on the couch, read a chapter in the middle of all the chaos of the day. I know for me, I have so many to-dos on my list all the time. But when I pause intentionally and say, listen, we're going to sit on the couch and we're going to read a chapter of this book, oh, it just does something for all of us. It just builds that connection right back up. It helps my body to calm down and just relax a little bit. And it just makes me so peaceful inside and full of joy. So don't underestimate reading and practicing those skills, because when you're reading, you can easily practice some basic skills, right? Hey, what do you see? A noun in this sentence, right? Can you identify the noun? I was trying to think proper and common nouns. That's what I was trying to get to. Can you identify the proper noun in this sentence? Or what is the verb in this sentence? Or, right? Or they can be sounding out words with you. Just because you're reading aloud doesn't mean it can't be a little mini lesson. So think about that. How can you turn that precious time with your kids into little lessons? And as always, if you are struggling or if you are needing support in any areas of educating your kids at home, I encourage you to reach out, because I truly love walking alongside you to say, I got you. You're not alone. Your kids aren't broken, I promise. You have not failed them. They are right where they're supposed to be. You are right where you're supposed to be. And we're just going to continue to work on those challenges, and we're going to support their strengths, and we're just going to keep watching them grow one day at a time. You are amazing, and you are doing amazing work. So keep it up. But sometimes it might just be little tweaks from an outside perspective to say, oh yeah, that makes sense. I can do that. And then you can watch everything fall into place. So if you are struggling, if your child is struggling to read, you're not sure where to begin, I would love to support you wherever you're at. I've created the Reading Fundamentals program to meet your child right where they are. So from just learning to read or struggling readers, there is a spot for them in the Reading Fundamentals program. So if you are interested, there is an interest form in the show notes below. Feel free to fill that out, and it will help determine what our best next steps are. Well, thank you guys so much. I love that you're here with me, and I can't wait to see you next time. Remember, I'm helping you to raise kind, confident, independent kids with ease. Have a great day. Thank you for tuning in to the Home Education with Ease podcast. I hope today's episode left you feeling empowered and ready to take the next steps on your home education journey. Your support means the world to me. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. For even more resources, be sure to join the free Facebook group, Home Education with Ease, and visit eduplaylearning.com to explore programs and subscription kits. You can find the links and any other links mentioned in this episode in the show notes below. Remember, you're not alone. This community is here to support you every step of the way.